Good night and welcome to Mindful Live on YouTube. Again, if you are looking at this on YouTube, the again doesn't mean anything to you. But for those of you on TikTok, again, yes, hit that like button, double tap the screen there on TikTok, hit the like button and subscribe over there on YouTube. Yo, Ronnie, what's going on? Easy868 says it's time to move away from the Privy Council, and he's jumping in directly with the topic we're going to talk about tonight, because we're talking about the Privy Council, an issue that we have covered in the live before. Yeah. Killing that double audio coming in there. Easy says it's time to move away from the Privy Council. Well, Easy, there are some people who would be in support of what you are saying there. There are some people who agree. Some people say it's time that we go on our own. No need for this Privy Council anymore. And I could understand it. But there are statements for and against. As with nearly everything the way it goes, there are statements for and against. And recently, last week I read this story. I didn't actually read it in the live. I read it for myself. A lot of the news I read, I don't actually necessarily read all in the live. But I read this story last week where the president of the Law Association basically took a public stance on this whole issue. And that is something pretty strange, because as the president of the Law Association, you take this stance, it would be almost automatically assumed that that is the stance of the Law Association. The president of the Law Association took the stance that Trinidad and Tobago should adopt the CCJ, and she took that stance basically during the time of the funeral of the passing of our former Chief Justice, Michael de la Bastide, and he was the first president, I believe, of the CCJ, and she was saying it would be a good honor of his legacy for Trinidad and Tobago to adopt this CCJ, and etc. etc. I understand that, but nonetheless, as the Law Association head, you would nearly assume that this would come with some backing from the Law Association. Now, the South lawyers are saying, nahi, nope, 9, not us. We did not agree to this. At least the head of the South Lawyers Association is saying such. Head of Southern Lawyers fires back at Law Association Trinidad and Tobago president. President of the Assembly of Southern Lawyers, Syra Lacan, has fired back at the Law Association President Lynette Seabrand Sweet, senior counsel who is advocating for the Caribbean Court of Justice to replace the Privy Council as the final appellate court of Trinidad and Tobago. They're firing back. And as obviously with things like the way things like this go in Trinidad, there are obviously political considerations in this. Foreman says the Law Association has no integrity. What are you basing that statement on, Mr. Foreman? What are you basing that on? As ASL president, a member of LATT, and a senior ordinary member of the council, Lacan is calling on the council of LATT to promptly reconvene the special general meeting, which has been left outstanding for almost 9 years, to properly address the issue of whether TNT should adopt the CCJ as its final appellate court. You know, the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago isn't just a liming club. This isn't just where lawyers go and chill. This is an actual statutory body. What B-bill you're talking about, tallest? This is an actual statutory body. They have legal responsibilities according to our constitution that they are supposed to be carrying out. According to the South Lawyers, the Association of South Lawyers head, she is saying it has been 9 years since the Law Association has convened their special general meeting where they could actually have the discussion on if they should adopt or what position they should take on the adoption of the CCG. They are passing a bill behind closed doors to ban beekeeping in Trinidad and Tobago, tallest. I'm not familiar with the bill. You'd have to, I would have to apologize because I don't know about this bee bill that you're talking. I don't know. I don't know the details of the bill. Now that you say it, I might go see if I could dig up something and see what I learn, but I don't know about it. The bill that regulates the production of honey he is talking about, they are not banning it. Keenan Liverpool says, hi, good night. This Saturday I'm having a walk against crime and school. But you don't, Keenan, don't you say that every week? I feel like you say that every week, sir. Regulation isn't the same as banning, and I understand the yearn for regulation. I understand the yearning for regulation, but I also understand how very often regulation either backfires in what it's attempting to do or works exactly as intended in cornering the market for special interests. And I'd hope that if they're trying to regulate bees, it's about not getting it contaminated with foreign stock or something like that and all of that, not about attempting to corner the market for friends and favor givers. Ronnie says, I don't know about that. I know they want to allow for the importation of honey. Well, yes, I remember that. I know that has been a discussion for a while now that honey cannot be imported. And these things may have some limitations on our economy. So, as I said, I don't know. I'm speaking totally out of ignorance if I'm speaking on this bee bill here, because I read nothing about it. I don't even know the direction they're heading in. I don't know what the problems are they are trying to solve, so I can't see. Easy868 says it's going to backfire in the market. They're going to corner the market for their friends, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. I'll say that. I don't know that that is the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is. I remember when the cannabis was decriminalized in Trinidad, someone dug up and found out that very quickly, along with the decriminalization, a cannabis company was already registered under the name of some people who have links and families within the government apparatus. And I won't be surprised with some of those things. Wide Leather says contraband honey has flooded the market with the citizens none the wiser. Daniel Knight says the bill will be introduced in the Senate tomorrow. Well, I shall pay attention. Torres says the price of local honey is going to go up. Well, if they're bringing in foreign honey, if they're going to allow import, while at the same time regulating local honey, which would make it a bit more difficult to produce or more expensive, then if local honey prices increase while they allow for imported honey, I'd say that's kind of just folding up the local the local honey industry. Is South American honey cheaper? I don't know. I'm not a honey expert, but I would suppose that you would be able to access cheaper honey in South America. One of the problems we always face in a country like Trinidad and Tobago is matters of scale. We are not able to produce at the same scale as larger geographical locations would be able to produce. We are a smaller region, a smaller territory. So if we're producing something that requires land space, we don't have as much land space as other countries. And if you can produce at a larger scale, you can usually, economies of scale, you can usually drop the price more than someone who has to do it more on that kind of one-on-one individual basis. Tallest says honey also tastes different depending on location, correct? How does importing from outsiders help out the economy? Well, that's a unique question, because it could help the economy in that somebody is going to import it and sell it, so it's according to who's importing and selling it. My friend who's a beekeeper says the importation of honey can harm our local bees. Yes, that's true. I have heard that before. It's a delicate business. But that's on the bees. We're going back to the CCJ and the Privy Council. In an Express story last Thursday titled Make CCJ TNT's Final Appellate Court, Seabrand Sweet said it would be one of the highest honors that could be given to the CCJ's first president, Michael de la Bastide, who passed away on March 30th, and expressed disappointment that TNT is yet to take steps to embrace the CCJ. Seabrand Sweet also expressed disappointment over a recent statement by Lacan that the issue of replacing the London-based Privy Council with the CCJ should be put to a referendum. And you see, things like this almost always raise my eyebrow. When people who are in bureaucratic positions express disdain for the opinions and views of the general public, that makes me raise my eyebrow. Because this lady is the head of the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago. This is an association that receives taxpayers' money, has the ability to make legally binding and to make decisions that affect the country, the general infrastructure of the country. They can do that. They're a legally constituted organization. You were not voted to be placed there. You were placed and appointed in that position. And now that you are in that position, you are calling for decisions to be made, and you don't like the idea that the decision may need a referendum to make it. Yeah, they do. Yes. You have a place legally. Easy says, so changing to the CCJ change the process of the slow process of due justice within our system? No. Changing to the CCJ, I am pretty certain, will have nearly no effect on the speed of cases in our system. White Leather says, Miss Seabrand Sweet can have her personal opinions. Nothing wrong with that. Of course, nothing is wrong with that. But the problem here is that she is also the president of the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago, which is a legally constituted association, a legally constituted group, a statutory body. So you have the responsibility to express the views of this statutory body. And in speaking in that position, as the South Lawyers Association head was saying there was not a disclaimer stated. She didn't say, in my opinion, or speaking as an individual lawyer. She just said this. At least it was quoted like that in the Express. And if that is the case, the assumption can be made that it was said on behalf of the Law Association, which is what is being complained about here. Yes, it's the Caribbean Court of Justice. Foreman says, what we need most is more lawyers with integrity. Good luck with that, sir. Mr. Perfect says, what you think make the process so slow, and what you think will speed it up? Well, you know, on that note, we could jump to another article here where the same Law Association president spoke about that. TNT needs gun and gang court. Law Association president on case backlog. The establishment of a special gun and gang court can help in clearing the backlog of cases and ensure swifter justice, says President of the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Lynette Seabrand Sweet, Senior Counsel. So, according to her view in this article, one of the main reasons for the pace of cases in our legal system is there aren't enough resources. In a Zoom interview with the Express last Tuesday, Seabrand Sweet said that if one were to delve into the question of the sources of crime and what are the causes of the upsurge, they would find it stems from the situations of poverty, colonial history, the breakdown of family life among certain sectors, yada yada yada. You have all the conditions that are ripe for the explosion of crime that we are experiencing, she said, acknowledging that the judicial system is overwhelmed. The judicial system does not only consist of the courts. You have very much the police who have their role to play, and then you come on to the court, she said. Seabrand Sweet said resourcing across the board from manpower to training is an important factor in the delivery of justice. Taking it from the court end, we do have a terrible problem of backlog, and currently the judiciary is attempting valiantly to deal with the questions of backlogs in terms of their introduction of the Administration of Justice Indictable Proceedings Act, which gets rid of preliminary inquiries. So with the elimination of that process and with the introduction of the sufficiency hearings, which are hearings as soon as a person is charged, then you will have a number of years taken out of the process. Sibran Sweet said there is need for improvement in the criminal justice system as she reiterated the importance of resources. The judiciary is dependent on the resources provided to it by the executive, she said. She said it comes back to the question of having resources such as judges, trained prosecutors, defense attorneys, and moving away from the culture of adjournment of matters because the prosecution or the defense is not ready. And here's the thing for me. Shad says political influence is inherent in local courts. CCJ would be the same. Privy Council is last independent. Foreman says, will constitutional motion help with that? Easy says, so then guilty until proven. Innocent persons are to stay in jail until and court date on the Mr. Taxpayer Dollars. Daniel Knight says it's the same reason why they took the motor vehicles and cannabis cases out of the courts. White Leather says bring on night court. Mr. Perfect says okay, so what about the suppliers who now making a living off of holding prisoners? It's a business. Ross Warren says my opinion, a magistrate should be given a timeline of how long a case should take. Here's the thing. That seems strange to me with what she said there. She sounded like, without saying it, like she's blaming the government. Because she said pretty clearly, the judiciary, I'll read this line again, the judiciary is dependent on the resources provided to it by the executive. And she is saying the reason the courts and the justice system run so slow is because they are lacking resources. Now, we know this to be true. Because in this live, we spoke about the DPP's office that is yet to get an office. And they said they are working on less than 50% staff. And they have been complaining about this for upwards of a decade. So something strikes me as grossly incompetently wrong if you have the court systems complaining for resources in a crime-stricken country where we are relatively wealthy and they aren't getting the resources. Like for me, I don't understand what's the holdup. I would like, and someone was complaining about this in one of the consultations on the Constitution. Someone in one of the consultations on the Constitution was complaining that they found the access to the Prime Minister, the media access to the Prime Minister, was severely restricted. And I kind of find that too, where the questions asked of the Prime Minister are stale and regurgitated and boring and of very little import to the general public. I would like someone to ask some of these questions. Like, literally, explain to me, why can't the DPP get more prosecutors? What is the direct holdup in the DPP getting more prosecutors? Because as it stands now, that seems to be the first problem we're facing. Easy says, remember when the IOC had no stationery to start with the divers case? Yep. Daniel Knight says the government doesn't hire staff for the DPP. It's the Legal Service Commission. But Daniel Knight, I don't buy that. Let me tell you why I don't buy that. Because that's like telling me the government doesn't hire the police commissioner. It's the Police Service Commission. While we in Trinidad have lived the experience to know they are BSing us with that nonsense. You're saying it's not the government, it's the Legal Services Commission. But it's the government hiring the whole Legal Services Commission. And the government is in charge of making sure that they're doing their job. The government is in charge of providing them with the resources. So if the Legal Services Commission is not hiring more lawyers, who do we blame? They are an independent body. Nonsense. Nonsense. And some people were talking about this during the constitutional reform in consultations, and a number of people were talking about the nature of our bureaucratic institutions. They are made in such a way that they are unaccountable. Someone was a retired police was making the point that we should probably be voting for our police commissioners, a point that we have made in this live before, because these roles where they give us this Nancy story about neutrality and fair offices and politically neutral, no bias in these institutions. They are independent bodies. That Nancy story they give us, we know it's a Nancy story. When the Prime Minister fell out with Gary, he got rid of Gary in that and hired who he wanted, and who he wanted seems like he is insisting on that person staying, regardless of the mountains of incompetent evidence coming forward. So I don't buy that it's the Legal Services Commission that is making that error. I just don't buy it, because you are in charge of that commission, and when you wanted a police commissioner gone, you could have made influence on commissions. So now that we want lawyers hired so that murderers can face justice promptly, all of a sudden we can't do anything because the Legal Services Commission is in charge. Come on now, man. So somebody ruffle your feathers in your ego is what you'd be willing to interfere with the commissions for. But people dying and being murdered at a rampant rate, and cases being held up in the court for 15 years, and innocent people being on remand in the prison system for 15 years. These things, no. We have to leave those things to grow through the processes of time. Fireflame says, then when the case gets thrown out, the government is then sued and Mr. Taxpayer has to pay. Well, that's true. That's true. So we are in a position where we are waiting for the resources. The DPP's office doesn't have enough prosecutors. Daniel Knight says that's because the top cop positions come to the parliament. The prosecution staff don't. Did it come to the parliament to fire him? Listen, they write the law. They did over the law, Daniel Knights. They literally make up the law on how to do these things. They did over the law on the police commissioner to make sure that it comes to the parliament. They did that. So are you telling me now, though, that it's impossible for them to get any legal influence to get things done promptly through the Legal Services Commission? And yes, they didn't fire him, they just didn't renew. Yes, but it was a fire in the sense that there are still some very, very curious questions to answer about the rehiring process, which was supposed to be a neutral, unbiased, independent process, but seemed to be anything but that. So ostensibly, it worked out to firing him. And that's the point I'm making. These people write the laws. If they wanted to make something happen, they write the law in such a way to make it happen. Are you telling me it's impossible to craft legislation to get more prosecutors in the DPP's office? Well, here's the thing, Daniel Knight. Daniel Knight says to interfere with the commission, it's a special majority, not simple. The government don't. All right, okay. Well, let the government bring the request and ask the opposition to support it. Let the citizens of Trinidad see that Dr. Keith Rowley and the PNM government brought this package with the intention of solving that lack of prosecutors in the DPP office problem. We want the Legal Services Commission to hire more prosecutors. They are not doing it for whatever reason. And I think that's a reason we need to get from the government too. Because who recommends the people, the commissioners, to sit on this commission? Who recommends those commissioners? Who appoints the commissioners? So, the person who recommends the commissioners, or the group of people who recommends the commissioners, is the group of people who hired the person who hires the commissioners. So, the are doubly hired by the same group of people. In her own will. Daniel Knights, don't mama guy us so please. We went through about 2 years of this now, with the country paying keen attention with this whole president thing, and we understand the president is a rubber stamp now. We understand that. Please do not gaslight the country when the president appoints them in her own will. Please, please do not do us that. If the president is appointed from the ranks of the PNM by the PNM into a position of power, who do you think she would listen to? Don't Nancy story. This is the part, you see, the wine in your face is what gets people to the revolutionary side. The wine in your face is what gets people to the revolutionary side. Like, the kings, if they're doing their decadence, all right, you're doing your thing, okay, fine. But you're already urinating on the public. If you're urinating on the public, just say you're an evil man or don't say anything. You're urinating on the public, do your thing, you weird and kinky. But oh gosh, don't call it rain. And don't try to insist that I must call it rain too. Like, don't do me that. You'll get me vex. You'll get me vex. I could smell the urea. I am smelling the urea. Please don't tell me it's rain. That's the part that kind of aggravates. The president appoints them in her own will. Sure. So we have a commission that is appointed by the government. But somehow, we are supposed to believe the government has no control over that. And that's the point several people were making about the lack of accountability. So the government gets the power to make things happen without the responsibility and accountability of facing up when they fail. So, government policy is running the police, according to the Prime Minister. Government policy runs this police service. But if the police service is failing, blame the commissioner. And if the commissioner is failing, blame the Independent Police Service Commission. It's not our fault if it fails. But it is our policy. How does that make sense? How does that make sense? And why do you buy it, Daniel Knights? Why would you believe that? The people in charge of crafting these laws that have made it that way and are not showing any intention of trying to change it tell you it's just impossible to change. Like, has this government addressed this DPP shortage issue? Has that ever been addressed? Because the DPP has said it numerous times. The head of the Law Association now is saying they lack resources, and the resources are controlled by the executive branch. In case we don't know, the executive branch is the government. So, the Law Association says the government is inhibiting resources. The DPP says they are understaffed. Where are the resources coming from? Who do we hold to account? Don't tell me the Law Association. Don't mama guy me like that now. Come now. Do mama guy me so. We're big people. We're big people with sense. Like, I could take it. I could take it. Tell me that they don't want to change it and that's the way it is and live your life like that. Okay. But do mama guy me now. Easy says take a payout, reduce incentives, make changes to have a betterment. Mr. Perfect says, do you know about Ajupa, a process they introduced to speed up the process? I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm really not sure exactly what you're referring to. But it's madness in this place. Madness as per usual. Yeah, no problem. I will. Madness as per usual. Okay, Mr. Perfect. I'll be waiting on that. Speaking about madness, though, I don't know. Amara's alleged killer goes to court covered in faces. The man who allegedly beheaded 4-year-old Amara Lalit at her home last Monday has been sent to the St. Anne's Hospital for mental evaluation. High Court Master Margaret Sukraj Goswami on Monday remanded Inshan Constant, 39, the child's stepfather, to the institution during his first virtual appearance in court, accused of her murder. He was charged last Friday by homicide detectives after they received the go-ahead from the Director of Public Prosecutions. When the matter was initially called, Constant appeared before the master bareback, resulting in Sukraj Goswami standing down the hearing for several minutes, allowing the officers time to have him dressed. Sukraj Goswami was also informed by the officers that prior to his appearance, Constant had also covered himself in faces, hence the reason why he had appeared before her topless. I don't know, you know. Like, to me, personally, this is a personal opinion thing. To me, I don't care if you're mad now, you know. To be very honest with you all, I don't care. I think in such things, a doctor in St. Anne's, in my opinion, has no say on this case. Sink, if you follow me, if you've been following me long enough, you'd see the mustache cut, grow back, cut, grow back, cut, grow back. It's cut semi-regularly. I'm not that attached to it as it might seem. Rawson Warren says, I think he's fully aware of everything he's doing. It's all calculated strategy. Mr. Perfect says, in a nutshell, the police can't go for a warrant unless it goes through the master of the court. Yeah. I understand. I understand, like, why it goes that way, but I'm talking about to me. And for me, I found from the jump of this case, the mother began cutting the track for the plea of insanity Guti to run. You all know the statement you're making, track for Guti to run? I found, to me, from the very first break of this story, Mama was cutting a track. Good night, Anika Bessie. Yeah, all is well, all is well. Mama was cutting a track for this claim of insanity to go through. The words seemed very much to try to go down that line. But when you hear about the facts surrounding the whole thing, it doesn't really seem like this person just went mad. And here's the thing. If you go mad, how come you didn't go running up and down the road? How come you didn't harm yourself? How come you got mad and ended up taking out your rage on somebody you already in some kind of disagreement about? And listen, if you're so mad, your madness could behead a baby girl. Then you're too mad. Full stop. You're too mad. Sorry, that level of madness cannot be left in our society. That level of madness cannot be left in our society. Somebody asked about the writ of mandamus, if we could do that to our politicians. I don't think so. That's like trying to ensure they do their fiduciary duty kind of thing, make sure they do their job. I don't think we would be able to get that done here. Yeah, easy. I mean, if you're so mad that your madness could murder baby girls, then I don't even need a court case. The police could wrap up the investigation. They don't need to collect any evidence. The person has admitted they're so mad they could murder a baby girl. So, well, we just keep them away from society. That's how we solve that. People who are so mad that they could murder baby girls, that's the level of madness we say, all right, leave. Mr. Perfect wants to know how come he didn't fall off a chair. I think because a lot of people would have been looking for that. And I think if the police, after they captured him, did anything, like people were saying the police should have done their regular, he had a weapon, etc. But if you read the case, you understand how things turned out that way. Several things are so suspicious to me about that case. When I read it, they said the girl died between several hours. The death period was between 6 and 10 or some kind of thing, which is very strange to me because the mother said she left the home, which is 10 minutes away from the police station, to go to the police station and come right back. So you're supposed to know within a 10-minute period when the baby girl was murdered. But okay. According to the story, the mother ran out, went to the police station, came back with some police. When the police arrived on the scene, they thought they were coming for a domestic disturbance. By the time the mother went in to do a wellness check on her child and came out screaming, would have been just when the police kind of figured out what was happening. And then the man is already alive in your custody. What are you going to do? He's already alive in your custody. Police don't just murder people. Well, they're not supposed to just murder people just like that. Not supposed to. And then especially where you see the mother seems like all her affection for the man did not disappear. You might be shocked. The police look to try to do the Mr. Something there, and next thing mother start to defend. Good night, Nisi. I am Darian says, but can a lawyer use the clause of insanity to aid his case? Well, I guess it's according to what you mean by aid, but I suppose they are going to use the claim of insanity in his case. His lawyer basically insinuated as much. I don't know how much it would aid his case in terms of what the difference in outcome would be. Maybe he gets what's the aim? To get confined to the mental institute instead of the prison? I'm not sure. But I don't know. Some of that madness seems rather mightily convenient. Your madness is such to cover yourself with feces. Like, the most obvious thing you can get to make yourself seem mad in prison is the thing you do. You cover yourself in excrement. Like Which symptom of madness is that? And in a sense, as I said, I know it could sound cold, but I kinda don't care if you're mad, sir. Children are a unique level. Like if you and I'm not making an excuse for killers, but if the situation is as such that it's a love triangle and you get in a dread piece of horn and you see this man mental acuity degrading over time and couldn't take it, and it was that, and he had a mental break and in a fight and that, all right, okay, well, mental illness in a case like that, big people versus big people, you watch to see if something really was slipping and it wasn't the intention and that intention. But when it comes to children, white leather, I've heard so from some people. I mean, a horn is a powerful thing. Horn can do a lot. Tony says how you didn't play mad for 6 and 7 in jail. That's one of the ways you recognize, and you know, through my life experience, I'm not going to get into the details of that, but through my life experience, I've had pretty close dealings with people who some people call mad, people with mental illnesses and such. And there are several unique things you notice about people, about mad people. One of the first things you notice, especially when dealing with adults with mental issues, is they are still adults. They are still human adults. Sometimes people with a little mental slip, you're thinking their mental illness is causing certain things while it's just the human side. They could be all conniving, cunning, and wily all on their own. Some of the games and schemes that some mad people can and do play would shock you. You're thinking this person is mad. There's no way they're going through all of this intrigue. And they are. Ross Warren says, when you can claim I have my papers, you ain't no mad person. Some of them like to see that. Yeah. And some of it comes from a lack of understanding of what madness is and the varying types of mental illnesses that there might be. Very few mental illnesses are of the kind that you randomly murder people just because of your mental illness. You get me? Like, if you're murdering people, chances are your murdering tendencies are separate from your mental illnesses. And your mental illnesses may just compound on your murdering tendencies. It's not like the mental illness did it all on its own. Do they really give you papers if you're mad? Yes. People misconstrued madness with having a lack of intelligence, and that is so far from the case. 100%, Luke. There are very extremely intelligent people who may have mental illnesses. And listen, that's some of the scariest sides. When you see someone maybe more intelligent than you, but their mind is misfiring at the same time. That's the kind of thing they make comic book villains out of. Well, there's paperwork in all healthcare wide leather. If you go to the hospital and you have cancer, you would have paperwork proving that you have cancer. If you go to the hospital and you have schizophrenia, but you have it at a lesser degree where you are an outpatient, you would have papers to show that you are an outpatient who has schizophrenia. You would have the paperwork to show that. If you are an asthmatic patient of an institute, you would have paperwork generally showing that. So yes, it's obvious you would have paperwork, and that's the papers. But yeah, speaking about children being our most cared about group, I don't know how many of you followed this story. 7 babies dead in Port of Spain General Hospital, NICU, from an infection. Another grieving mum claims negligence. Another pre-action protocol letter accusing the Northwest Regional Health Authority of medical negligence has been issued by Freedom Law Chambers, this time on behalf of a Tobago mother whose baby died as a result of a bacterial outbreak. You all know who Freedom is, right? Freedom is the former AG and his crew. And 7 babies are being alleged to have, well, not alleged, 7 babies died, and it was due to a bacterial infection inside of the NICU. That's the neonatal intensive care unit. That's where tiny babies, as soon as they're born, if they have any complications and they need intensive care, they go there. So premature babies, by default, would go to the NICU. That's probably the main population of the NICU, premature babies. I would know. Mine was. She was in the NICU all of 21 days. Every single day I was there in the NICU. So this story is kind of personally scary to me too. In a supposed highly sterile environment. Now, when you enter the NICU, they warn you about the NICU. It is a highly sterile environment, but the reason it is highly sterile is because of the dangers and infections and infections and bacteria sometimes do make it in. While my baby was there, that's 2022, there was an infection in the NICU inside of Mount Hope, but they found it pretty quickly and they were able to treat it. They found out specifically what it was, etc. In this one, they're saying there wasn't that treatment. Now, for me, I could tell y'all, if I have a choice, Mount Hope would see me every time. Those other hospitals start to seem very scary. There was once upon a time where Mount Hope, they called Mount Hope Mount Hopeless, but I think Mount Hope kind of turned over a new leaf recently. You don't generally hear the kind of scary stories. And I'm telling you, I was there for a month every day, and it seemed pretty good. Let's read this story. They're suing on behalf of Sharice Moore. Well, they sent a letter on behalf of Sharice Moore Beckles, 36, whose baby Crystal Precious Miracle died at the Port of Spain General Hospital. The letter stated that Moore Beckles was admitted to the Scarborough General Hospital on February 15th as her water bag had ruptured and she was experiencing abdominal pains. It added that she stayed at the hospital for approximately 1 month until reaching the 26-week term. On March 13, 2024, she was transferred by helicopter to the Port of Spain General Hospital and was admitted to the antenatal ward in Unit D. The letter stated that the baby was observed by her mother to be healthy despite being born prematurely, and she was advised by hospital staff that her baby was doing well. It said at no point in time did any medical personnel inform the mother about the possibility of an infection affecting her baby. And that's one issue right there. No one informed the mother from the jump. And as I told y'all, I was informed from the moment of birth that infection possibilities are there. There's a possibility for infection. I was informed about that. No one informed this mother that it was even a possibility. According to the pre-action letter, it was only on April 5th there was worry when the baby required a blood transfusion as her blood count was low. It stated that on April 6th, Moore Beckles visited the NICU neonatal intensive care unit and noticed men wearing white hazmat suits, causing her concern. But she was asked to return to her bed and she was assured everything was fine. The letter added that she returned to check on her baby and the doctor disclosed to her that the previous night on April 5th, the baby had experienced significant distress and had to be resuscitated multiple times. Throughout the distressing ordeal, there was no mention of a potential infection. Our client remained under the mistaken impression that her baby's deteriorating health was solely attributable to prematurity, stated the letter. So, you're seeing in this case, a major part of the complaint isn't just that the baby got an infection and died, but they treated the mother with seeming disregard as pertaining to her baby. And this is something that I look at in health systems, and public health systems. This is a problem it creates sometimes, because the public health system does not have you as a direct customer. You are not the paying customer. So you aren't the customer. The government is the customer. You are just being paid for by the customer. Sometimes, if they perceive you as someone who they don't regard highly, they don't think your education level is up there, they don't think your social status level is up there, oftentimes you go to the hospital, and I see it with mothers too, where they're treated like a child, like something to be controlled and handled, not a human being to be reasoned with and explained and things explained to, but just someone to be handled and controlled. We know what is best at me, and we will do what we think is best, and you don't worry about this. Let the professionals handle this business. You don't have anything to worry about here. We are the professionals. Mommy, you don't worry about this. And I think that's not how it's supposed to be. The person is the center. The person you're treating is the center. And if it's a child, the parent is the center of that. It is disclosed that the baby died on April 6th. Condolences. The letter stated that the staff and or agents of the Northwest Regional Health Authority were negligent in that they, and this is what the letter stated, we're going through what the letter stated here. A, failed to provide adequate communication regarding the baby's deteriorating condition. B, failed to adequately monitor the baby and respond promptly to signs of distress. C, failed to be transparent regarding the baby's medical status. D, failed to provide accurate and complete information about the baby's condition to the mother. E, failed to provide a clean, safe, and sanitized environment in the NICU. F, failed to take the necessary steps to ensure that the NICU was bacteria-free, knowing that only high-risk babies are admitted there. G, failed to properly adhere to and maintain industry standards of a NICU unit. H, failed to recognize that a baby with an infection was in the NICU and it ought to have been adequately sanitized. Wow. H, to me, seems to be the key. Because H seems to signal that the infection came from another baby in the NICU that they were aware had an infection and they did not properly sanitize. Rawson Warren says unless they are held accountable, this will keep happening, business as usual. Spockman says, didn't someone say that we have the best healthcare in the Commonwealth? Funny. The thing is though, Rawson Warren, the way how these things are done, it's difficult to even hold individuals accountable here. Like, if there was negligence and there were people who did the wrong things, this lawsuit is almost 100% not going to do them anything. The lawsuit is against the Northwest Regional Health Authority. That's a company, for all intents and purposes, run, controlled, and financed by GORT, the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. If they win this lawsuit, and personally, I feel like there's a high chance they win, probably just because I saw Freedom Law Chambers there. Usually, when Freedom Law Chambers elects to sue the government, they like to do it on cases they think they're going to make some bank on. So even if this case doesn't win in the local courts, you know a case like this, very likely Freedom is going to carry this all the way to the Privy Council if needs be. Even if this case is lost by the NWRHA, the NWRHA CEO loses no money. Their chairman, their directors, they lose no money. The nurses on the NICU, they lose no money, they lose no job, they are under no punishment. The doctors who are on duty, they face nothing. The consultant on duty, nothing. The manager, the supervisor, anyone, any individual who may or may not have actually done the erroneous actions, they face nothing. So even if they win this case, what's the consequence? What's going to happen then? Speaking of the children, though, jumping away from the extremely saddening to a bit scary, tutor, Barrackpore School Death Threats Act of Terrorism Treason. President of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, Martin Lumpkin, has condemned another online threat to students and teachers. On April 5th, Lumpkin and the police said the senders of emails had threatened to shoot and kill students and educators at the Barrackpore East Secondary School. The emails were sent to the school's education ministry's email address and 2 teachers. The email said the acts were to be carried out on either April 15th or 16th. That's today or tomorrow, just by the way. Tutor takes the opportunity to condemn in the strongest possible terms the actions of this individual or individuals and sees this as an act of terrorism and treason. They added that the ministry decided not to close the schools on these 2 days, even though the administration, staff, and parents of the school had expressed unease. Tutor believes that in this day and age, any such threat should not be taken lightly, and the Ministry of Education, as well as the police service, should take every precaution to preserve the lives of the occupants of the BES. He also cited the adage, an ounce of prevention is greater than a pound of cure. And I understand what he's saying, but I don't know if I agree. Correct, Daniel Knights. And now you're getting into my favorite side here. That's why I don't like the public sector. Daniel Knight says in the private sector, everyone done get their letter. Correct. Private versus public. Lack of accountability. We were just talking about that. All the way back to the Legal Services Association and the DPP's office and all of that. Kervon says, would the SSA be involved in such an investigation? Ha. I don't know. I suppose within the realm of the SSA, when they are involved in an investigation, they aren't necessarily supposed to make it very public. But I don't know if I agree with the head of tutor here. He's basically saying that they think the school should have been closed. But when you think about it, if you're closing a school for online threats, I think that makes the bar for school closure too low. My personal opinion. But I think it makes the bar for school closure too low. I'm not convinced. Wrong, brother. It makes the bar for school closure too low. And if you make the bar for school closure low, students are going to do it. One of the articles had a snippet of the story there. Let me see if I could pull up that a snippet of the The letter. See if I could pull up that letter there and get exactly the meat of this story. The quote from the actual email, I believe. Is it Express had some of the quote? Yes, it's Express. Let's jump in over on Express's version and see that. In the emails, the sender wrote, mark this date, 15/04/24 to 16/04/24. I will shoot up the school and kill every student that goes to best Monday morning or Tuesday. Guess we'll never know. At 9:30 a.m. or maybe earlier or later, everything will go down. I will make history as the top school shooter in Trinidad and Tobago. This is not the only school that is going to get shoot up. I promise every single soul will be dealt with accordingly. Teachers and students will be dealt with in a very painful way that leads to death. I have been planning this since the new year. I am sure I will succeed in my mission. I'm coming for your school, was the quote from the email. Now, I am not saying that we should take these threats lightly. But if we are to follow what the tutor president is saying here and close down the school for this, this sounds like a child. This threat literally sounds like a child. If you send out the notification to the entire school population of Trinidad and Tobago of teenagers and under, and tell them, if you send a threatening email to your school, we will close the school, what do you think is going to happen? I said this ever since the first email scare happened. I said this is not going to end here. An email is too easy of a thing to send, and children are too impulsive and impressionable. They are obviously going to do it. Like, the reason children under 18 aren't held to the same consequence for actions is basically because we deem them sociopaths. We say that they aren't technically capable of understanding the full gravity of their actions, so we don't hold them to the full consequences of their actions also. If you are dealing with little sociopaths who do not fully comprehend the nature of action and consequence, and then you tell them they could get their short-term goal of no school today, like, even if in the next month you're going to ping an IP address and catch them, which I don't foresee happening, but even if that were the case, these are children. They are not thinking that far ahead oftentimes. And you are going to end up getting the worst of the children. It's not like it's all the children there. It's going to be the worst of the children who want no school, the children who are willing to risk it. And you think they care that much about the consequence? And that's even supposing they can find it. Listen. It really is not that hard to be nearly untraceable on the internet. Terrorists who are being pursued by the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA of the United States, are able to send emails and use the internet and cannot be caught by the strongest, most powerful intelligence agencies in the world. And you believe that the TTPS is going to make these revelations? Ross Warren says you need to find a person and set an example that you will be found. Well, that first phrase is the problem there. You need to find a person. You need to find a person. A simple example. So I go to an internet cafe, I open incognito, and yes, I know incognito is still stored by the internet service provider and all of that, but it works in terms of my short-term goal. I open incognito, I create what's this email, the email service? Proton Mail. I create a Proton Mail, send it from incognito in an internet cafe without cameras. Even if 2 months later you trace to the internet cafe, they trace it to the internet cafe, we find the IP address, they trace it to the exact computer was being used. This internet cafe has no camera. Are you going to find out who was using this computer? Saturday, the 5th of February at 9:30 a.m.? You think that's within the capabilities of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service? I think that might be outside the capability of even some of the best police services in the world. Especially when you're talking, if it's a minor. If it's a minor, they went to this internet cafe, they sent that message, they disappeared. The internet cafe doesn't know them. It was a cash transaction. They paid the $10 for however long, $5 for half an hour, whatever it is. They paid, they sent the email, they play some game, and then they're gone. What's going to happen next? Even if the police were able to trace the IP, get it back to the internet cafe, they run up in the internet cafe. What you looking for? What are you looking for here? We don't have cameras, sir. And even if we did have cameras, they don't keep footage for 2 months. So, next. Do you have a login book? Well, no, we don't have a login book. But even if we did have a login book, the school student is going to write his name as SpongeBob or John Doe or something like that. So what are you going to do? How are you going to find that? And then, if you cannot find it, you cannot stop it. And if you cannot stop it, and every time it happens, you take it as a reason to stop school, what's the signal being sent? Luke says, have some people on the internet like web bloodhounds, how to find and hire them. The thing is, oftentimes, a lot of the people who are the best on the internet are oftentimes anti-statists. Oftentimes, the people who best understand and use the internet are the people who are least likely to help governments to get control of the internet. Because the reason they love the internet and use it so much is because very often they are trying to escape the clutches of the state. Anonymous says he could have even scheduled that email to send long before, which would make it even harder. Fact. Easy868 says the ticketers are only focused on sharing tickets to a party no one wants to go to. Ha. Speaking about TTPS, I saw something on Saturday night, shaking my head. What did you see that made you shake your head so, Nisi? What precipitated such shaking of the head? As I say, I think our police service should increase the requirements and increase the pay. The police drinking on duty, Nisi, you now see that? This is the first time you saw that. I may or may not have heard firsthand from a person, maybe some miles away, maybe close to me, maybe someone I know, maybe someone I don't know. All of these are disclaimers I say before I say this story. Someone who was saying that they were riding motorcycles in a group of them were riding motorcycles. The police pulled them over. None of them were licensed nor insured. And they offered the police some drinks. The police went with them to the bar, drank the wrongs with them, with the marked vehicles. and allowed them to go on their merry way. Something I heard. Let me put it like that. So these aren't new occurrences. These aren't new occurrences. Sometimes the police are driving weird. Now, Stefan, I don't think I saw your comment all night. That story made you comment though. Like that story ring a little something in your memory. Sometimes you see those police vehicles driving crazy on the road. Maybe they might have enough fuel. Maybe they might have enough fuel. You never know. But it's Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is widely known to be pretty slack. And, you know, that's why when we're doing the lives and sometimes officers jump in the live and they attempt to make it seem like the police service is some exceedingly serious, super professional, expert level business going on here in Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm like, you all understand you're talking to Trinis, right? We deal with police on a day-to-day basis. We deal with police on a day-to-day basis. We know how the officers are. Nisi says my daughter's school had it back in times. The man was more drunk than the people in the party. Hey. So I remember another one that I may or may not have been around. Someone having a line in a community now, and the police that do the usual what they call that, patrolling that community. They're having a line, and you know, the police pass in. Every time they make a little wrongs, they pass in and take a shot. Yes, in uniform, of course. By the end of the night, they were drunk. Normal thing, normal stuff in Trinidad and Tobago. Stefan says, I like when they're at the bar drinking. I feel safer. Well, remember there was an incident in Central, what that was, about 2 months ago, where a police was at the bar drinking, seemingly, with his, and ended up in a scuffle, and then went for his firearm and ended up losing his life with his very own firearm. So, I mean, but I got you, Stefan. Hey. Anyway, people, we're rounding into a close there. Are there any further comments or questions on the inside before I dive out? Things get so bad in T, nobody believes in the police. And that's why the requests for the population to be more armed are becoming more and more stronger and increasing. It's understandable. If nobody trusts the police and the only people with the guns in the society are the police and criminals, and I don't trust the police and I don't trust the criminals, then the only people with the guns in the society are people I don't trust. That's the society we end up living in. A society where all the armed people are people we don't trust. Imagine that. And how would that function? You see the story with Oh, yes, I did see that story. And I saw some additional news on that story, Daniel Knight. Jiggle says, but you can't trust the general public to obey the road laws. Respectfully, Nathan. If our police would honestly deal with criminality, if our police would stop guarding drug blocks alone, for that, I am willing to exchange not enforcing any of the road laws. Allow all vehicles on the road, allow it to be free, like Trinidad was in 2000s. You know, in the year 2002 thereabouts, nobody enforced anything on the highway. There was no speed limit, there was nothing. I don't mind going back to the wild, wild west on the highway. Enforce no road laws. I don't mind that. If you are willing to honestly deal with drugs, give me that in exchange. But what I get in exchange is the police telling me about how important the road laws are. You know, Trinidad and Tobago is so lawless. People won't obey the road laws, you know. While people are being murdered and robbed on every corner. Boy, leave the road! What you talking about? That you think the Trinidad and Tobago citizens are most concerned about the road? Listen, I grew up in a time when they used to drag race on Monroe Road Highway. When I was a child, that was a normal thing. If you're going from the east-west corridor to south, you pass a drop low Civic racing past you, heading from Monroe down. I'd rather go back to that time with no home invasions and only a 120 murders for the year. Give me that. I'd rather 10 Civics wrap around a post per year than we have 1,000 home invasions for the year. Like if there isn't a priority level to law enforcement. That's what annoys me. Like there is no priority level to this. And they keep saying this nonsense over and over and over. In Tobago, the police are upset. How dare the Tobagonians? How dare the Tobagonians keep selling out the roadblocks? How dare they keep selling out the roadblocks? We're trying to solve crime and only keep telling on the roadblocks. Well, obviously, the Tobagonians telling on the roadblocks because people are murdering people all about the island. You aren't stopping those, but tickets like rain sharing. Yes, easy. Correct. Good times. Good times. I agree, Stefan. Not one rifle they get in a road. Correct. Correct. Like if these fellas are staying in traffic, you know, they now put on a shooting. So what you saying, do the roadblocks without tickets? I love that. And I've said this before, you know, Jiggles. I've said this before. I've even put it this way. Put the traffic wardens to give the tickets. I want no tickets personally, yeah? I find we could throw away that whole idea until we solve certain things. But if you think it needs to happen, allow the traffic wardens to give out the tickets. Let us all hate them in the yellow and black, the yellow, white and black. Let's hate them together. And leave the police to solve the violent crime. When we bounce up on a police in a roadblock, I should be feeling relief in case there's danger around me. I shouldn't be trying to escape the roadblock and go through all the back roads. You're taxing all my knowledge of Trinidad rural back roads, trying to avoid roadblocks. No, I should see a police and be willing to drive straight through. Yes, officer, you're doing a good job, officer. Keep it up, keep it up. Catch them, eh? They're out there tonight. I know it going, eh? Yeah. I know it is out there. That's why I don't want to have beef with an officer. I have no gun. I'm not going around with a gun. I'm not transporting coke. I don't have a body in my trunk. If you are not giving me a ticket for some random nonsense that I didn't even notice on the vehicle, then I have no worry in a roadblock. I could go. The vehicles are, any vehicle I'm driving is inspected. I don't mind going through the roadblock in terms of inspection. But you know that anything on a given day they could pull up and harass you about. That's the reason you don't want to go. Tian says the police only policing people who obey the law. Stefan says someone could now pass and say road clear and the Jeep pull up 2 seconds after. Things should be more darker with the sun here, huh? Well, I think they don't have the power right now to I know they don't have the power right now to ticket you for a tint, and they don't have the ability to scrape off the tint on the road either. So, but the laws, the policies are according to the traffic commissioner, licensing commissioner. He says they are in the works. So who knows? Kirvan says the problem is road exercises. If they're looking for some guys and they set a roadblock for that, it's not bad. Correct. It's not bad. No, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. And to me, you know what would work way better than a roadblock? All those officers on the roadblock patrolling. Like, it kind of dumbfounds me that we have traffic-filled roads all through our nation. And we have people doing drive-by shootings. How could there be a drive-by shooting in a dead-end trace in Claxton Bay at the wake of a murdered woman, and you're telling me there were no police anywhere near to give chase to that vehicle? It's a dead-end trace village. This woman was murdered over something that occurred in the village. It would be a reasonable expectation to expect a fiery week. No police. If you know Claxton Bay, it's not like it's filled with outlet roads. But someone could go to the woman's wake in a drive-by shooting, murder her brother-in-law, and drive out. Kirvan said, I must admit, when KPB was PM, the police had more highway patrols. Listen, the PNM style to me suggests that it would lean down that direction. That kind of status quo, no questioning what has worked before, keep the people who are always there, is the same old herder. The PNM, it feels like with the PNM, we would continue having the same daily policing done with a brand new operation name. If we were to go 2060, we'd go 2060 and see the same thing being done. What are you doing awake, co-host? Jiggle says, Nathan, I can tell you because I know those guns are being transported by road. I know that. I don't doubt that, you know, Jiggles. 100%. Of course the guns are being transported by road. But why aren't they stopped in the roadblocks? They are being transported by road, but no roadblock stops and catches the guns. So then obviously the roadblocks are not effective. Yes, they are being transported by road, but you aren't stopping them in the roadblock. So how about we know the home ground of this gang. We have patrols regularly in this vicinity, and any car going in and out, we search them. Listen, because we as citizens tell them where the roadblocks are. Sure, that's why the gangsters can't be caught, because the citizens tell them. Not because they have police brethren, because the murders that happened in St. Augustine, where they basically wiped out an entire family, and the guy from the family that was wiped out, I believe he was eventually killed when he was released from jail. When he went in jail, he released a voice note saying the police are telling them when and where to do it. And you know why I believe him? Because that's the only way those things could go on. So don't tell me it's the citizens telling them. Like, we as citizens are supposed to pay $1,500 per roadblock and not tell each other and warn each other about it, just on the off chance that the police might not warn their criminal brethren and they might catch one rusty gun. Does that seem like a good payoff for the citizens? Does that seem something like something the citizens would want to do? If you are not catching the guns in the roadblocks, then why should I feel obliged to suffer in these roadblocks for something that is ineffective? That doesn't make sense to me. Like I said, the roadblocks nearly seem like a way for the police to effectively not curb crime, make money for the government, while still looking like they're doing something. Roadblocks, to me, roadblocks seem like the ultimate in Trini politicking, where you hurt the citizens, do nothing of benefit for the country, but look like your real work. That's what it looks like. The ultimate in Trini politicking. Roadblocks. If, and you go back to the mayor of New York, Trump's friend, who pulled back New York from its crime heyday in the 80s. And you look at what he did to pull back that crime. Giuliani, right? If you look at what he did, you know what he did? He packed the police by Beetham, all along St. Paul's and Piccadilly, all up inside Laventille, all down the main road going over there. Constant police patrols. And anyone seen was stopped and frisked. Any vehicle in and out was stopped and searched. But would the PNM be willing to hear their constituents say they're targeting them? Would the PNM be willing to do that? Because when I hear a home invasion in Mearu, you're sure everyone would say that? I'm not sure about that, Jiggles. You don't know Trinidad if you think everyone would say that. Everyone would most certainly not say that. When I hear a home invasion in Mearu, and the 4 people that were killed by the police were all residents of Beetham and Morva. And it seems like 70-80% of the home invasions or crimes conducted in different areas in the country when the men are caught are from certain geographical areas. Police, aren't you all information based in how you all do your duties? Why do you have a roadblock going up Cora? You trying to catch somebody going to the river with over an ounce of weed and give them and send them to jail for that? Do you know that some Duncan Street residents moved cameras that were just installed? I'm not surprised. And they should be punished for that. Broken windows policy and the stop and frisk policy, and that's all done. But instead of actually focusing on the areas where there are broken windows and stopping and frisking, stopping and searching the people who are actually guilty, we say, no. We don't want to be targeted here. Let's stop and search the entire country and hope that by chance we happen to catch some of the criminals, while we for sure harass thousands of law-abiding citizens. But those gangs have their police friends. Those gangs have their police allies. So don't tell me you're trying your best with roadblocks, while all the best opportunities to stop the crime are being allowed to pass. Again, it's like the peeing on me thing. If you're peeing on me, it's one, but don't tell me it's rain. Come on now. Don't tell me I have to say it's rain. You're overdoing it here. I could look at it, I could smell the urea and know what it is. All right, people. Kevon says the police in a WhatsApp traffic group claim the road exercises is just like the broken windows policy. That's their understanding. That is foolishness. And that's a lack of understanding of what the broken windows policy actually is or was. That's not the broken windows policy. That's not what the broken windows policy was. The idea of the broken windows policy is that derelict buildings, derelict things would attract more crime. So if you see a building with a broken window, eventually it's going to get a broken door. Eventually the broken door is going to cause vagrants to enter. Eventually the vagrants may allow some users along them, which would allow some dealers, which would eventually turn it into a crack house. I am for them, Dinkan. In fact, I need to join back one. Somebody send me a link for a WhatsApp group now, people. I was in Uncut, but I never used to send anything, so, you know, they boot me. Somebody join me back now. It was primarily about building and communities, not poorly maintained vehicles. Correct. And you see, the broken windows policy isn't the same thing as the unpainted wall policy. Because a poorly maintained vehicle that is driving on the road is more like seeing someone who hasn't painted their house for the last 5 Christmases. It's not that it's a broken window where it will attract degradation and negative aspects of society. It's a show that they're struggling to keep up with the cost. That's what it's showing. WhatsApp groups good too if your vehicle was stolen. Yep, it is. I mean, that to me is unifying the country. That shows the unity of the country. We don't want to see our fellow countrymen pay $1,500 tickets. I don't want to see my countrymen lose their license or pay tickets for their seatbelts. I don't care. For their tint. I don't care. For minor smoothness on their tires. I don't care. For a cracked glass. I don't care. The vast majority of those things, I don't care. You aren't going to get me to betray my fellow countrymen to pay money to the government over a seatbelt. That's not going to happen. Yep, correct, Kevon, correct, you do. Kevon, if you have a link to our WhatsApp group, message me now. We will talk. Most groups start good, then religion, politics, and bacchanal takes over. Yeah, I've heard about that. Some groups devolve into insanity. TTPS and the government doesn't like a unified country. Seems so. Alright, people, that's all I have for now. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. This has been the Mindful Live. I am Nathan Sprung. I'll see you guys again for the next Mindful Live show, which is going to be tomorrow around that 9:30 p.m. time. So until then, people, stay well, stay strong, stay healthy, you know, stay safe. Stay inside. Outside is sketchy. Go marry and make some children. Marry and make children. That's, you know, that should be my call as I leave every night. People, go marry and make some children. All right, later, folks.